All right.
Train.
All right.
9,
8,
7, 6,
5, 4, 3, 2.
Time's up.
Since I can't get Kevin Bacon, I got Kevin Bacon.
I love my guns, but survival is more than just heavy weaponry. Monster hunting requires imagination.
No noise. No vibrations.
We arm ourselves. We set perimeters. Stand guard.
Monster hunting can require a great deal of walking. A pair of pantyhose worn under your regular socks can help prevent blisters.
Everybody go!
You'll be fortunate enough to bag a monster and want to get your trophy home. Pantyhose can be used as a handy tie-down in the absence of bungee cord or twine.
Man, we decided to leave this place just one damn day too late, you know?
It's time to talk hard!
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to Talk Hard. I am Pops. I'm here again with our wonderful co-host, Stone, Loki, and Ironcaster. We have a great guest tonight. Director, creator, Ron Underwood is with us. How are you, Ron? Thanks for hanging out with Talk Hard.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is already blowing up in chat. We will try to keep up with you guys in chat. I see Chris Burgess here. He's our moderator and the wrench of wrenches, my friend. Claude is here. Some other folks are popping in and out. So listen, it's going to be a fun time. Ron's got some great stuff that he's done in the past. We've obviously already been fans. You guys already, if you haven't seen our Talk Hard Tremors, we had such a great time paying a tribute to Fred Ward, R.I.P., as well as just a great film, Ron. So we'll kind of go around a little bit, let everybody kind of have a chance to ask you a question or so and that kind of thing. I know when I rewatched it this last weekend with my lovely wife, the First Lady, and I were just laughing and just remembering and all of that. And one of the things that I always go back to, which really isn't something that I think gets a lot of attention these days. I know these guys are sick of hearing me talk about it probably, is just the amount of attention to detail when it comes to set design, the teeth on the graboid, the intricacies of like a universe. You built like the foundations, what's become like, I don't know, Tremors has what, 6 or 7 films now? It's like you've built
They're working on number 8.
So this infrastructure. Yeah. Talk a little bit about all of that development, which I'm not going to throw stones at everybody and how much that seems like it's fallen to the wayside, but I do every time we do a stream. It just seems like you did so much with that.
Well, Brent Maddock and Steve Wilson, the writers, really are wonderful writers who really created that movie and the tone of that movie in the script. And all I had to do was deliver it as scripted. And it was a lengthy process of making it. It took us 5 years to get off the ground. And so we had a lot of time to think about it in 5 years before we got the financing. And so we worked together for those 5 years. First, as it was first a treatment. Brent and Steve had just written Short Circuit when we started it. and so they were kind of hot in Hollywood. Everybody wanted to work with them. So we had this film. I was set to do, between the three of us, I was going to do Short Circuit as my first film, because we had done a short film that was with a robot set in the future, and it led into the idea for Short Circuit, and they wrote that script, and then I was going to direct it, but the studios just looked at me like, why would we let you direct this movie? Because I had just done short films at that point. And so we started working immediately after that sold on, well, what could a first-time director get for a film? So that's what led to our choosing a monster movie and a movie with the monsters under the ground, so they don't have to be seen all the time. And it came from an idea Steve Wilson had when he was in the Navy and sitting out on a rock in the desert and thinking, what if sharks were all around this rock? And so that was his original idea that led into this treatment for Tremors. And we went around to the studios that all wanted to work with Maddock and Wilson, and we pitched this idea about these 30-foot underground monster worms, and we just got blank stares, no dialogue, just like blank stares from them. It was just like there was no way they got the idea. So
I think Loki would admit we feel like sometimes they don't get it today. Like nothing's changed much, right, Loki?
No, yes, nothing. No, absolutely right. Nothing. I don't think anything's changed today.
It seems like that's the one consistent in Hollywood.
Right. Yes.
I think in the early draft actually was called Land Sharks at one point.
It was. And then Saturday Night Live had that, and that sort of screwed up that idea.
Yeah, we can't make Plumber Man jokes on Ron's film. That's not going to work for us. So, I mean, obviously you had probably a normal casting process, but I think we all would love to hear about seeing your impression of the chemistry between Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward in particular. And obviously it's crazy to think about Michael Gross and Reba McEntire as the supporting characters, because they're just like these characters on their own that, talk about a film that could have 4 spinoffs or something. It's just a crazy universe that manifested.
Yeah, it was very unlikely. Kevin was not the first person the studio wanted us to go to, but Kevin was, I had a meeting with Kevin, and he was just great immediately. And I just loved him. I loved his sensibilities. I loved his previous work. And I felt so lucky that he said yes to the movie. I know that a lot has been written, and he's said that it was kind of a low point in his career when he took it on, and sitting out there with underground monsters kind of was tough on his psyche at the time making it, but he was just great to work with. Fred Ward was somebody whose work I had really admired, but he was not the first person the studio wanted us to go to. They wanted us to go to James Garner, I think.
Huh.
And then I found out that it was actually to clear up a lawsuit with him about something else. So wow. You just never know. I mean, there's always a lot of different things pushing the agencies and the studios to try to get certain casting. But we were just blessed that when we went to Fred Ward, which was the first offer we made for Earl, he said yes. And that really is what made that film work so well, is the chemistry between Fred and Kevin.
Yeah. Chris Burgess says it's just a fantastic universe building. Just, yeah, we couldn't agree more. And they definitely came out with our love of it all. It's just so much of that. And
you mentioned the production design or the sets and all of that. And we lucked out by getting a wonderful production designer named Ivo Cristante, who was so all encompassing in his the way he approached building sets. He had this idea of building Chang's Market with these springs on the roof, so that the roof could flex when we wanted it to, so that it was supported with the springs in place, but supported until we wanted it to bend and start to crash. And that was his whole design. I mean, he designed this whole thing to work so incredibly in a way I'd never worked with anybody quite so far thinking in terms of his planning the way he did for creating, and just the reality of that little town and what he brought to it in terms of going out throughout the California desert and finding these little gem pieces of set dressing and trailers and various things that he was able to accumulate on our small budget.
Tremor Saga stopped in with us, and listen, it's our pleasure to have Ron with us. We would love to have any of you guys with us again. We're just, when you're fans, it just makes all this fun. It's like, this would be so difficult. You know, when I was doing radio, it'd always be a challenge to get people in and off shows, and when this segment, that segment, and all these limitations. Now it's like we're across the country. All three of us are in completely different states. You're in a different state, and now we can just, our limitation is how much time we can all contribute. So, Ironcaster, you were like the expert when it came to sort of like the Tremors documentaries and featurettes and those kinds of things. Speak a little bit to some of the things that we might want to ask Ron from some of that kind of stuff. Because it usually, as much as we were thrilled about a factoid, we always raised like 3 more questions or something. So,
I mean, sorry, you catch me a little off guard there.
I got to try to do my part.
I mean, one of the things I find really interesting is how, as the franchise ultimately went on, it was the fact that they chose that character of Burt Gummer to essentially become the face of the franchise. And, not, you would think Fred Ward, which they had in the second one, or even Kevin Bacon. I mean, yes, he gets that top billing on the posters, but it's interesting how people look back and they see, a lot of people will look and see that, no, that Michael Gross, Burt Gummer is the face of the franchise. What was your thoughts on that as the 7 sequels have spun out, plus a TV series, to where he has become essentially a star because of this in his own right?
Well, yes, he was quite a star with Family Ties before, but I mean, in such a different direction with the Tremors. I think Michael is such a good actor and so versatile that it kind of made sense in a lot of ways that he would be the guy, not just because he was a good actor, but because his character was so out there and so great for fighting whatever challenges came up with the offshoots of graboids and various things. And when he doesn't remember this, but I remember when I was casting the film, I mean, he came in and I was kind of very lukewarm on the idea of Michael Gross because I knew him from Family Ties. And I thought, how can that guy be this character of Burt Gummer? But he came in and convinced me that there were graboids in the room when he was reading. I mean, and it just changed the way I even looked at the casting process after that, because I saw how you should stay open and see what people have to offer and see what they deliver. And he delivered the best special effects that I could imagine for that reading, because I believe there were graboids in that room.
Was he one of the earlier ones that was cast in it?
He was, yes, after Fred and I think after after Fred and Kevin, I think it was Michael. And Michael, the studio really wanted Michael because of his TV rating.
Sure.
That it would just
Draw.
assured TV sales and everything because of that. And so they were very high on him. And I thought, but then I did watch a film he did before getting to meet him, which was the FBI Murders. And that showed me that he could play a very different character. He wasn't just the guy from Family Ties, definitely. And I saw his range in that, and then he came in and blew me away. And similarly with Reba McEntire, she was one of MCA's, Universal Parent Company's, biggest recording stars at the time. And so she wanted to get into acting, and she was interested in coming out to read for it. And I was a first-time director. I was not very enthusiastic, having somebody who'd never acted be in the movie. She flew herself out to LA, came in to read, and was unbelievable, blew me away. There was a recent article where she talks about how I was kind of questioning whether she, in the room at the casting session, whether she would feel comfortable with no makeup, because we were planning on her not having makeup. And being a country singer, she was kind of known for, a lot of makeup and her, beauty and all of that. And she just said, of course I'm up for it. And that was kind of her upbringing and her life. I mean, when she was just so comfortable with firearms and with the whole setup in shooting Tremors. And she was a huge star and sitting out in the desert with no special treatment. And she did just great.
I think when we did that Talk Hard, if I let Loki control the remote, he probably would have replayed that scene probably like 6 times. Right, brother?
Oh yes, absolutely. And I love Reba. Everything. Anytime I get a chance to see Reba in something, growing up as a good old Southern Texan boy, God, we love that Reba McEntire. And getting to see her in that movie, it was just like completely, she's known for that too. It's like, she had her own show, but she's in this movie and she's perfect in this movie. And everything, every line, you didn't even make penetration with the elephant gun. There's like those lines that you just immediately know and remember. And a lot of that has to do with Reba. It's Reba. And it was so awesome getting to see play that role. Was absolutely excellent.
Go for ground penetration.
Ironcaster, when we were doing Talk Hard, we were just amazed because we were really, I don't know if we talked about it ahead of time or we just learned more about it through the featurettes and some of our prep about digging the trench to make the earth effects and people being down there with these little puppeteering maneuvers and things like it was just, we take so much of this for granted because of CGI and stuff now and all this, we've gotten so far away from practical effects, but I don't expect you to have specifics, but ballpark, like how many people are we talking about here of doing this? This is crazy to think about it in hindsight. You're in the desert, they got trenches, and you both had to deal with like cold and hot. They got the weather and the production got totally crazy on you. Speak a little bit about just the whole process of making that part work.
It was crazy. And I mean, we were trying to do things that physically are impossible, of course. 30-foot worm tunneling through the underground at high speed. That is just an impossibility. Going through dirt to break through the surface, it's an impossibility physically. And so how do you make it feel real? And so a lot of the success of the physical effects was just kind of bulldozed technology, creating these trenches where we would put boat buoys in the trench and attach it to a rope to a truck and just drive the truck and then put dirt mats over the trench so that the hump moved. And then when we wanted the creature to burst out of the ground, we would just dig a deep hole, basically build an elevator in the hole, and stick the graboid head, the first 8 feet of the graboid, into the ground with one of the makeup effects creators, artists, Tom Woodruff, inside the thing. And he was inside the Tremors head, underground, in the elevator, and we put dirt over it. So he was stuck in this hole. I mean, it was just like, I wouldn't be able to handle that. Just, I'd go crazy under the ground like that. And then we would say action, and the elevator would sort of go. It was so sad. Oh my God. And so it was a struggle to get the physics to work even in controlled situations. It was nutty. And as you say, the weather was like wildly different from day to day. And I was worried in pre-production that the cast would have no energy with the heat of a desert shoot. We got out there the first day, it was snowing. We had to stop shooting for a bit while it was snowing. We didn't make our first day, which was not great for a first-time director, not making their first day with the snow and everything else. And then other days when everybody was up on their rooftops, and we had Charlotte Stewart and Ariana Richards on their roof, and winds of like 60 miles an hour. We had them roped down, tied down to the surface so they wouldn't blow away. It was like crazy time out there.
Wow. Loki, what else we want to throw out? Okay, I'm giving you your Tremors opportunity right now to just, because I'm just fanboying a little bit too, because I'm just having all my memories of seeing this film. And I said it in that video, Ron. Like I remember coming out for the first time, I was like, what did I see? Like my head just didn't quite get it. But every time we saw it again, I think we saw it about 3 times in the theater. It just kept getting better and better and better. Then we basically become your PR department on the campus at our college. We're like, you got to go see this movie. And it was like, that was a, yeah.
I appreciate that. And a lot of people didn't get it.
So this was like an every other like week movie, I guess. When I was growing up, we'd have pizza on Friday nights and we'd watch a movie. And at least, once or twice a month we'd watch Tremors. And I showed Pops and Ironcaster when we did the Tremors review. Universal made a commercial with Bill Cosby making fun of Tremors. And they had the scene of the graboid coming up in the ground, and Bill Cosby's like, "You don't want to just go see another monster movie. Come see Ghost Dad instead." And I always remember that. And I actually found a clip of that commercial.
Wow.
And so the story I heard later was that Universal wasn't all in on Tremors, and they thought it was a disappointment. And they just kind of threw that in Ghost Dad because they were like, well, what does it matter anyway? But Tremors is like a long-lasting film. This is a movie people still watch today. It's still being, where's Ghost Dad? Ghost Dad's, back in the VHS pile at the Dollar General store. Tremors is in Best Buy. Tremors is in Target. Tremors is still, you can still find Tremors. Oh, look, a Tremors 7-pack. I have to have it. And it's still there, and it's still part of pop culture. Did you know about that commercial when they?
I didn't know about it, but I'm not surprised because Universal. I mean, after the first weekend, they were disappointed with the box office the first weekend, so they cut off all advertising, and that was kind of it for the movie in terms of the studio's point of view. They wanted the core horror audience to come see it, and horror films at that time were just not quite that kind of movie, and so it was different, and they had a hard time marketing it because of it. And when they didn't get to their cutoff figure for the weekend, they just said, okay, sayonara.
Hmm. Yeah, that seemed very common back then. That's for sure. Go ahead, Ironcaster.
Oh, just I think ultimately a lot of those sort of monster movies like that, where the big villain is like a creature, you know, ghoulies or leprechaun or those. There were these film series that have just thrived on VHS, and so they were able to just keep churning them out. I mean, there are what 12 or 15 Puppet Master movies now.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it really was because of VHS and because of the home video market that the movie survived and made it. It was not Universal's doing necessarily. I don't know. I mean, we lucked into the fact that the home video was just getting underway, and it was a big hit when it came out, and so that changed everything. And then Universal said, well, let's do a sequel. So then Brent and Steve wrote the second Tremors that was going to be a theatrical film set in, I think we were talking about shooting in Australia actually, but when we didn't get Kevin for it, then they sent it over to the home video department, and it became home video.
We can't Footloose. We can't Tremors 2. I don't know what to say. Soul Assassins, bringing up his memory. He says, and this is hard for us OGs there, Ron. You're just a couple years ahead of me here, but it's a little hard hearing about. Watched it 1 and 2, spend the night at my grandma's house as a kid. It's a little painful. Thanks, Soul Assassin, though. Appreciate the age reminder there. Gap, though. Gap's a little more aligned with me here. He says, yeah, but Tremors is a unique and fantastic. Well, yeah, Ironcaster probably doesn't have it handy. He was showing off his new 4K version, so he was really flaunting the merch the way we were doing one of our shows. The show until it came in, and I was like, I popped right over. I was trying to grab one off eBay because my Best Buy or whatever didn't have any, and so yeah, it was
a beautiful transfer. That was really nice that they did that. That was great.
I should have sent you
that film is just
a
blown
copy
off shelves. Like even today, like the 4K, it's a little trouble to get it now. Like I was fortunate enough to find it when I did.
It sure is. Yeah.
They made that transfer, which was the best transfer that had ever been done, as the 30th anniversary.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So you can actually shoot in the desert, it seems, and you can pull off a production and deal with all of the drama. So they decided, you know what? We'll give this guys the keys to a Billy Crystal comedy about a bunch of people dealing with midlife crisis, and that's kind of how City Slickers goes. Is because, man, I remember City Slickers. Like, I mean, we just watched it over the weekend again. We binge all this stuff for the show. My wife just has a laugh with me because I just like I'm fanboy nerding out, and she's just like, yeah, it's great, it's fun, whatever. My wife's just so chill about everything. So, is that kind of how this went? Hey, Ron, you did it. We're good. Or is it more like you had to fight, you had to pitch, how'd that navigate?
I mean, I wasn't the first person studios would think of for a bigger budget film at that point, but I through my agent, who later became my business partner, Nancy Roberts. She is really, we would never have been able to get Tremors off the ground without her behind the scenes making it happen at Universal. But she got the script by Lowell Gantz and Babalu Mandel for City Slickers for me to read before they had selected a director, and I read it, and I loved that script. It was just spoke to me. I was fairly young, but I had already had a midlife crisis, so I really could relate to Billy Crystal's character of Mitch going through this midlife crisis, which is really what the film is all about. And I wanted desperately to make it. And so somehow Nancy got me into a meeting with Billy, and we just hit it off. And it was really great because we saw the film so much eye to eye, and and he was a great collaborator. It was his idea for a movie from the start. He had seen a news report or some kind of special magazine show or something about these cattle drives, and thought this would be such a fun movie. And then bringing Lowell and Babalu into it was genius, because they wrote such a good script that was, you just look at that script and it's so well structured, so perfectly done for getting both the heart and the humor across, and it was great. It was fun. I got to play cowboys. I mean, Tremors was kind of my childhood, going with all these 50s monster movies that just scared the death out of me, and I would leap into bed from 10 feet away when I was going to bed, just because of what might be under my bed. And City Slickers was all the cowboy movies I watched growing up, and so I got to be a cowboy, which was great fun.
That was a big thing though back then. I mean, you even turn on the TV and you'd see like real men smoke Marlboros and rustle cattle, and there was this thing, I have to prove that I'm not just this city fella. I've got to prove I'm a real man, and going out and going on the cattle drive, and I've been rustling cattle all summer. That was like, it was almost like a proving I'm still a man's man. I'm still that manly man that comes from the manly man base.
It's true. And what was funny while we were making it, we had real cowboys all around us, because the cattle couldn't be dealt with, of course, with any of us. We had to have real cowboys, and they would just be sitting back on their saddles, kind of smirking and laughing at us the whole time. It was very funny.
Well, as somebody who moved and gave their wife a farm, for the pandemic, because we just escaped from civilization somewhat. And literally, I don't make it a day without getting hurt in some way, shape, or form. This City Slicker. So I either bang my head in the goat's house because it's too low. And actually, I was going to take a picture. Loki would have appreciated this, because I was on a show and they got me talking about all the stuff on the farm. And I literally wasn't there more than a couple hours, and I cut my arm on one of the chicken coops because the way the wet domestics. I'm like, yeah. Not all of us are built for this stuff. And the movie really highlights that this is not for the meek, and it doesn't even scratch the surface of how hard it must be to wrangle cattle and have but I loved it. I don't know. It was, I don't know, if the three of us were on City Slickers, guys, I'm telling you, we'd be almost as comedic trying to figure out how to navigate the situation, because it becomes absurd really quick, right, Ron?
It's pretty absurd, yeah. And I mean, the whole concept was basically, I mean, this was three guys. They could have been having these conversations in a diner in New York, but instead they're pushing a herd of cattle. Three guys having a conversation, riding behind 200 head of cattle is not possible. So the first scene I do was in Durango, Colorado, and we have this scene where the guys are talking about life, pushing the cattle. We have all the cowboys, like 15 cowboys, getting the herd all moving the right direction. They peel off for the cameras. We're on dollies and cranes and everything. And then the I say action, and they start their dialogue. And a few cows go this way, a few go that way, a few turn around and start walking the other way. And pretty soon, the three of them are the only ones in the frame, no cattle. Oh my God, this is going to be a hard movie. That was my first shot.
Ironcaster, I can't even put into words how hard it is to wrangle my few animals into bed at night. Like the turkey will go this way, the goat, you get one goat in, the other goat squirts out. I can't imagine hundreds of cattle. And most of this had to be done also you had to redo with ADR, right? Because there has to be so much noise from that many freaking cows.
I mean, sound is really important to me. So I, as much as I could, I would get the dialogue all good on location. So we wouldn't have to, even if we were just on somebody's face and we wouldn't have anybody else around, I wouldn't leave the set without getting the dialogue, because it's so hard to recreate the feeling you have on the day.
Yeah.
And so even in what I'm shooting these days, I want to get the dialogue good right now.
I agree with that. Soul Assassin is saying City Slickers 1 and 2 are classics. Couldn't agree more. And Gap is going to throw out his favorite quote, which is to Curly. Says, Curly, if you killed anyone today, they ain't over yet. There's a lot of good quotes in this movie. Let me tell you right now, my friend. Let me throw it to you, Ironcaster. You got a good City Slicker quote or something that strikes you about this film that's kind of standing out a little bit, or?
I mean, I gotta be completely honest here. I didn't get a chance to see this movie yet.
Okay.
All
All right. Listen, we're transparent.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Somebody to watch it. That's good.
See, one more viewer coming your way. Here's the thing. I'm going to sell him on, Ron. The script wastes no time. The script is so tight. I don't know what Ron can tell us if it was ad-libbed or modified, because Billy is kind of like that, where he can just randomly go into characters in and out. I've watched him do it. It's crazy. I interviewed him after he did one of his audiobooks, Ron, and it is just a fascinating. These comedians are just, the programming is not like the rest of us. There's a special human there. But this script wastes no time. It's super fast, and you care about not just the secondary, like the third level of characters. You have the dentists and the ice cream guys, and you're going along and cheering and laughing, and that is when a writer's hit a home run, in my opinion. So,
yeah, the script was very tight. Billy really loved the script too. So we didn't do a lot of improvisation. I would say we would always get the script first, but Billy does. I mean, he's a genius, and so he came up with some great things. And we did have ad libs, certainly in the film that worked great. And but there weren't as many as you might expect. The script was very tight.
Gap's throwing out quotes because he's talking about the scene where Mitch has been rear-ended, shall we say, and they're in Spain. And El Doctor, hello, don't sew up anything that's supposed to remain open, okay? And the doctor doesn't really understand English and just kind of nods. But it just plays. Literally, to be honest, before you get too far, even just the credits, Ron, how did that come into play? Where the credits become a gag, a credit become a hook. That's not always something films were willing to do.
Well, I was a big fan of movies from my childhood again, where credits were done as animated little shorts. And so I love the idea of doing an animated little story for the opening credits. Preceding the credits is the scene in Pamplona, Spain, where it's the running of the bulls, where Billy gets a bullhorn up his rear, and we shot that on the Universal backlot in LA, with a second unit going to Pamplona to get some wide shots so that it felt like the real deal, that really was the real deal. And we had, these bulls running all over the Universal backlot, and they actually got away because we were trying to stampede them to get them going. And then people on the Universal tour were going along in these tour buses, and bulls were running alongside them. We just had almost like a disaster at Universal because of the running of the bulls.
Loki, he calls it a disaster. You and I are both like, why are we not there for these opportunities? Loki and I getting to run some bulls, we'd be in all sorts of trouble, Ron. We'd be an insurance claim just waiting to happen right there. I tell you right now. We'd just be yelling, "Lady, look out!" Oh my gosh, that's so much fun. You got paid to do this, Ron. I'm so envious. You know,
it is getting to play. It's kind of I've not had to grow up in my life really.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, Tremor Saga is just fun to hear Ron's stories. Yeah, it's always fun to hear these stories. And you know what? There's someone else new. Like Ironcaster hasn't seen it yet. There's gonna be people that will come and they're gonna watch this video tomorrow, next week, a year for who knows. This is insane. The world just changed, and now we put stuff on YouTube. Now this is just. It's just completely different. Someone didn't know about the featurette, didn't know about the 4K, didn't even know about Tremors, and now we're talking City Slicker stuff. And okay, my wife will kill me if we don't get into it. There's a baby calf born. How on earth did the Norman situation, scripted, not scripted, done? How? My wife's got to know. That's all she asked about. She only cared about Norman. That's basically. Sorry, Ron, your film project was reduced to Norman. And I'm like, all right, I'll start.
Norman was an important part of the script, and we had actually a real cattle call for the casting of Norman.
Okay,
and so our offices were at Culver City Studios in Culver City, and a truck of calves pulled up, and we looked, and we were trying to pick Norman, and I saw this calf with these incredible brown eyes, big brown eyes. I fell in love. I was in love with this calf. I said, that's what I want. And what I didn't realize when I said that was that we needed like a new calf every week because they were growing so fast, and they would get these horns and all of this stuff. Oh my gosh, it was so complicated, and it wasn't calving season, and we had to get all the calves we could have born during the production. So we kept having new calves born just week after week.
Yep, action. Let's film it again, Billy. Philip, grab Norman. Let's go. Yeah. We got another Norman being born.
And when we did the birthing scene, I had just seen a movie with Rip Torn and Kachata Farrell where they actually delivered a real calf in the film.
Okay.
I'm blanking on the title of the film, but it was amazing. And after I saw that movie, I went to the producer, Irby Smith, and said, I want to have this reality level. Mm-hmm. I'd like to have a real birth. Can we figure out how to do a real birth on camera? They did it. Couldn't we do it? And then when we had a casting call for mothers, I took Billy into the truck to show him the cow that I really wanted. And he picked up the tail sort of the way he does in the movie and says, there are some things I won't do for money.
And that story when I talked to the man, gosh, it's good.
So we got K&B Effects, which was Greg Nicotero, who is a superstar. Yes. He is one of the executive producers of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And now, but at that time, he was a young makeup effects guy who was really into creating the most real birth we could manage. And so we did actually use a live calf, one of our Normans. He made the rear end of a mother giving birth, and we put this cylindrical tube into the mother and then we lathered up the Norman in a bunch of orange juice, kind of like Tremors blood, and just kind of squeezed it through this cylinder. And Billy actually was able to deliver a real calf out of this Greg Nicotero creation.
It's
And
fantastic.
it
It's
was,
fantastic.
and one of the things, it was complicated to get it. And we got, I can't remember what the problem was first. I think we were snowed out during filming. And so that became a problem and was one reason we couldn't complete the scene. And then we shot it in the studio in Santa Fe, built a set for where we were going to recreate that place. And then when we were over Billy's shoulder going toward Jack Palance, he did an ad lib that was so funny about his losing his wristwatch.
Yep.
And so we didn't have him on camera doing it. And we didn't have time to turn around and do it again. So that was the last shot we did back in Culver City when we were shooting on the stage on Culver City. The last shot we did at 2 a.m. was Billy delivering the calf again, the third time. And where we got that wristwatch shot.
It was a gift. It was a gift. So a YouTuber insider joke is that Soul Assassin points out that Loki and Pops will move some cows. We have to include Mexican Iron Man and Zero, which we probably are a little outlandish, miscellaneous characters. So yeah, we would definitely represent a film well if we did try to do a City Slickers 4 or 3 or 4 or whatever it would be. So the chat was on it, Ron. By the way, the film that you're thinking of with Rip Torn is called Heartland.
Yes, Heartland.
They're all over it. They're all over it.
That was amazing. Amazing film.
Yes.
And an amazing thing, so complicated. I think they got up in the middle of the night to get that calf scene done because they had to do it when the calf was ready or when it was coming out.
Chris, a prosthetic cow giving birth that has to be at first. I don't know, but it is a fascinating story. And I'm not shocked that there's like this hybrid of efforts because it is so difficult to work with animals anyway, let alone cows.
Yeah.
But I will say, Norman with those eyelashes, oh boy, cows are killer, man. Cows are killer. Okay, so Gab's bringing up something, Loki, you were talking about before we started the show, Jack Palance. Let's throw the Jack Palance stuff out there a little bit again. For those of you who don't know, just the glory of Jack. I mean, literally wins the Academy Award, starts doing push-ups. I mean, the man, he's a man. Man's man right there, Jack Palance.
He ate bacon at every meal. Or the curly version of him ate bacon at every meal.
Yeah.
So
You can't
yeah.
do that.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't do that. I really, it was written for Jack Palance. It was Jack Palance's role, but I called directors at the time who had worked with Jack, and I just got such bad feedback. I was worried about using him. I was worried that he might be too difficult to work with and not care about the role necessarily other than doing it for money or something. So I said, I'm not sure that I can go to Jack. And so we went to Charles Bronson actually first.
Wow.
Charles came back through his agent and said, I'm offended that I would be offered a role where I die halfway through the movie. I don't die in movies.
Wow.
So we couldn't think of anybody better. So I had a meeting with Jack. Billy was there too. We had just a drink at the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, and Jack was great. He was wonderful, and he was charming, and I really enjoyed meeting him. And he was offered the role, and he took it. And the first day, in the first scene, we were in a corral. It was his introduction to the film. He rides up on his horse, lassos a cowboy, throws a knife at his crotch, and Billy says, and Jack says, the cowboy was hitting on one of the City Slicker women, Helen Hunt was
Ellen Slater.
Helen Slater, I mean, and Jack says, "See that it doesn't happen again." And Billy says, "Yeah." And then Jack looks over and then Billy says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were on the same side." But in the rehearsal, Jack didn't look at Billy. He didn't give him. And I said to Jack after the first rehearsal, if you could just give Billy a glance after that, his line. And he said, "I don't do glances." I said, "Oh, that's fine. A look will do." And he just went off on me about movie acting, and he was going to walk off this movie. And I was in a corral with Jack Palance, and the entire cast and crew just backed out, left the two of us. It was like this gunfight. Oh my God. But I had
those
been
cartoons where all the characters step back and leave Ron standing there by himself. Like Billy Crystal suddenly is gone in his trailer or something.
Yeah. I come up, I mean, I'm short. I come up to like Jack's waist. Having talked to other directors, I wasn't that surprised. I just said, "Jack, I hope you don't walk off this film. There's a whole generation of people who want to get to know you, and you'd be great in this movie. Please stay with it." The cast and crew came back. I didn't dare rehearse it again. I just shot it. He looked at Billy at the right time. Later that day, I was sitting next to him. He took his cowboy hat off. He hit me in the leg and said, "First day jitters." And from that time on, we were great friends. He did everything that I hoped he would do. He cared so much about the role. He loved Billy. He loved working on the show. And it taught me a lot about just the nerves of everybody on the first day. And I was just grateful to get to work with him. And I did his last movie before he passed away, which was a great experience again. And I was a lifelong friend from then on with him.
Comment/question, I think, is a fair one. Just an observation. First, how do you feel about the lack of true actors today? But I think the second part kind of clarifies that statement or question, in that it seems like there's a loss of craft, dignity, inspiration, etc. In other words, there's just I think the audiences feel a little distant from the authenticity that you're kind of talking about with Jack and even Billy to a certain degree. Yeah. It's just something that we as audience members are not feeling it of what you're talking about. It's like been lost.
It's so important. I mean, and craft, it is a craft and something that needs work and experience, and people can have incredible gifts, but it's still about a craft and becoming a better craftsperson. And it's sometimes too easy to become a star without that craft these days.
That's true. You can become a phenomenon or a trend.
Yeah, right. Without being prepared. And that was one of the things in the old days before my time too, in the studio system, where actors would actually have training. And I think I love working with British actors, but I don't like that they're taking so many of our actors' jobs. But we have so many Brits because they have a lot more
stage experience.
Massive
amounts of stage experience. Yeah.
Yes. Craft.
Yeah.
And so I just encourage everybody to continue honing their craft.
Well, we didn't mean to leave Ironcaster alone on City Slickers, because he's our City Slickers noob, but we're going to have a new viewer in that arena. But yeah, it's just these two films, man. They're just these iconic things that you've made a footprint on. And I'm not trying to take away from anything else on your resume, but these two are like, even the normie in a cafeteria can talk to me about Tremors and talk about City Slickers. So it's such a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you about it personally and share some of that. So
thank you.
Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, Chris has a follow-up, basically comment. See here. Creating the sense of connectivity between the audience and the characters on screen is vital, and it helps to fully immerse you in the story. Couldn't agree more. And Loki, you talk about this all the time on your show, that this is really kind of where we're at. Like, we don't feel connected, where you're making product that is not in our universe or our franchise.
Yeah, it when it's impossible for the viewer to connect to your movie, to find some kind of connection, to put themselves in a role, almost to have that window. A lot of times we're not stupid viewers, very intelligent, and we understand when a director or a writer is using someone to allow us to see the movie through their eyes. We're experiencing that, like Billy Crystal is that in City Slickers. We're experiencing everything through Billy's eyes and through Billy's experience. That is important for us. And when we don't have that, when there's nothing to connect to or no one to connect to in a movie, it's very difficult for people to get into it and get lost in it. We love that. We love getting lost in film.
Yes, and that's my history with movies, is being lost in movies from childhood, and in TV shows where I just wanted to be a part of that world because I related to the character, and you're being told the story through the character's point of view, and that's really so important. And something I always work on in everything I do. Whose point of view is this? Whose point of view is this scene? What is it about this scene that makes it relevant to the audience and to this character? And if you find those things that are true and truthful, then the audience is going to find that truth as well.
I agree. Well, you are now kind of fast forward to now. You're jumping full into the deep end of a franchise that has so much lore and a thirsty, crazy fandom, and that is The Walking Dead. And you get to be part of the new anthology series, which I got to be honest, Ron, I've kind of been out of Walking Dead for a minute, and I'm very thrilled about the idea of an anthology series because it seems like something that makes perfect sense. Let's just tell 6 stories about this crazy epidemic and stuff going on, and you get to be privileged to be part of it, kicking us off, I believe. You get to be able to kick off this incredible show. So how did that call come in? Hey, Ron, I know sand monsters and cowboys and Indians and some. Yeah. How about you done zombies, Ron? How you feel up for zombies for a minute?
Actually, I have. I've done a few Fear the Walking Dead, and I really I love how those stories, although they're in a world infested in zombies and as we call them, walkers, it's really about real life characters who have to deal with this stuff, and that's what makes it interesting. It's how the characters are dealing with this crazy apocalypse they're living through, and so I really enjoy doing that. And my Fear the Walking Dead somehow kind of relates back to Tremors in a way, because Gail Ann Hurd, who was executive producer of Tremors, is an executive producer on The Walking Dead. Greg Nicotero is an executive producer who's from City Slickers, the birthing scene. And his company creates these incredible walkers. So it kind of relates back to way back when. I started doing Fear the Walking Dead a few years ago when 2 of the producers from another show I did, Once Upon a Time, which was a Disney fairy tale show, producers from that went on to Fear the Walking Dead, and I've really enjoyed doing those. And when the call came in to do Tales of the Walking Dead, it was such a great thing for me, just because it was like doing a little movie. Since every episode of the 6 have different characters, different actors, different timelines. They're vastly different timelines within the apocalypse. And so in my particular episode, Terry Crews and Olivia Munn are the stars. And again, it kind of relates. Terry Crews is what's now called a prepper, which is what in the old days of Tremors we called survivalists. So Burt Gummer and Terry Crews's characters. Terry's character is Joe. They have some similarities, and Joe went underground before the apocalypse. He was a prepper getting ready for problems in the world, and he started corresponding with another prepper on the internet and sharing ideas about their underground bunkers and that sort of thing. So he sets out early in the film to find this woman who he really fell in love with on the internet. And but along the way meets up with Olivia Munn, who is also very very prepared for the world. She's not a prepper, but she can handle herself out in this apocalypse world.
Yeah, she look, to quote Loki, she looks like she's ready to kick some butt and take some names.
Whoa, I'll say, and the two of them as characters couldn't be more different, but they come together through the show, and it was so much fun working with the two of them. They were unbelievable. They had a long-term friendship from when they worked on Newsroom together many years ago.
Wow.
And Aaron Sorkin's show. And
you got Soul Assassin's attention. He's like, "Ooh, yeah, Terry's basically Bird. That's nice. All right." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. That's what I thought too when I kind of picked up on some of the pieces that Ron was throwing down. Soul Assassin. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and Terry and Olivia are just unbelievably gifted, wonderful actors. The showrunner Channing Powell was amazing and wanted to really create something that was unique from the rest of the Walking Dead universe, but still worked within that apocalypse world. And so each of the episodes is very different tone, and there's comedy, there's everyone, even in more comedic ones, that's very certainly tense with a lot of Walker action and just the tension that is part of living in the apocalypse. But as I believe, and why my films have some comedic bent, no matter what the subject, usually, it's because I think that's partly how we deal with adversity, is through comedy. It's how we get through it. And so to keep your sense of humor is one of the things that's really crucial in surviving the apocalypse.
Yeah, this show, I mean, obviously there's zombies, but reality is it's the human element is what drives the show from start to finish, in my opinion. That's really what all the elements are. I guess it drops August 14th on AMC, 9 p.m. It's episode 1.
2
it's
weeks
right around the corner.
Yeah, a week from Sunday. And that, for people who on AMC Plus, there'll be 2 episodes that night. The first and second, and the second one is takes place early on in the apocalypse, and is a very funny show, and so I highly recommend it.
You guys,
yeah.
Question? Go ahead, Ironcaster. You have a question? Oh, I thought you had a
Yeah.
question.
So I was wanting to ask, and this gets off The Walking Dead specific a little bit, but what has been your thoughts on with the advancements of technology, with the computer graphics, of trying to have actors working off the CG? Has anything like that sort of been an issue for you, to where you're having difficulty with actors getting to?
It's certainly, it takes a better actor to work without the benefit of anything real around. I felt lucky to be at the end of the era prior to CG to get to do those movies like Tremors where we had no CG, and City Slickers. It was before CG, but it was, it was just coming right around the bend with The Abyss, and right in that same time frame we started to get into CG, and there's amazing things that CG can do that expands what stories can be told. So I'm not against CG. I like the films that use a blend of both, of real when it's possible and CG when it's not possible. But and I think there's something that a greater reality that's added when you can have things really happening on set. So I'm a big proponent of that with special effects, real special effects as opposed to visual effects. But yes, it requires even a stronger connection for the actor to be able to act without anything there. But I mean, I'm as a director, I'm always trying to give them something to look at. If we can get a big blow up of what we're seeing, or some little creature or whatever it is on set, even if it's a hand puppet or something else, just to have something for them to react to, is always helpful. And also, it's very important for eye lines when you're dealing with a shot with multiple actors. You need them all looking at the same place, so you need something for them to look at. And if they're going to look at something, it might as well be something that can be scary or funny or whatever you're looking for that scene from them.
Okay. All right. There's a good question in chat. We kind of rolled past it a little bit. But basically, like, what draws you to a project? Is there something in particular that, I've done too many of these, or I haven't done one of these in a while? Or is there certain things that runs through Ron Underwood's head of, like, telling the agent, this is kind of what I'd like to do next or look for, kind of how that works?
Well, I like variety. So it's not maybe the best thing for a career, just because Hollywood would really like to just say, this is what that person does. And it just makes it easier for everybody. But from the time I did Tremors, I didn't want to do a horror film for the next film. And I got offered a lot of horror films. Actually, after Tremors was the longest period of unemployment I had for my entire career up to that point, because I kept turning down things, because I wanted to do something that I really believed in. And that's what I look for always, is just something that I can invest myself in totally. And I want to get lost in that story, in those characters. And it's really characters that bring me into it more than anything. And then a story that's believable, that deals with those characters. But I like all genres, and it's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about doing television, is every month I'm doing a show that has a totally different tone and a different set of characters. And so I don't feel like I'm ever getting stale. I'm trying to, get up to speed with what these characters have gone on, what's gone on in their lives up to this point. And so I'm always learning and trying to figure out what makes people tick in the script, and how to show their point of view. Like Loki was saying, I mean, point of view is so important, and really capturing a character's point of view so that people can relate to it and understand. And so that's what I'm really looking for, is stories that I can relate to through the characters.
Is there a project that got away? You're like, maybe you didn't agree to it fast enough and they found someone else, or you're like, I really said no, I was kind of on the fence, maybe somebody talked me out of it. Is there one of those you'd confess to? Oh, there's always one.
There's
can
many.
I get Ron to confess to it or not? It's usually the trick.
There's many.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one that I was dumb to just turn down right away, and that was Men in Black.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But it just was not the right timing for me. And but I mean, there were many. But I mean, it's just, you know, and it's you're looking, and part of it also at that time I had another project that I was developing that sort of dealt in the same world of aliens that did, and so I didn't want to commit to that when I had my own project that sort of had that same world in a way, and in that film never unfortunately got made.
Gotcha.
But it was something that Sam Raimi brought me, and Sam was involved at the time. Yeah, going way back.
I want to circle back around to something that Loki said earlier, because I think he shortchanged something there, and that was the fact that he talked about watching Tremors like several times, like really multiple times during the year. But it seemed like, Loki, I think when we talked about it, you talked about it really being like a bonding thing with like your family and stuff. Like this was more than just, a clean movie we can have on, or it's dad's favorite, or what. No, this become more like family time, and that's kind of a cool thing for a filmmaker to hear about.
No, exactly. This was pizza night, movie night. Usually we had it at the end of the week and we watch a movie. Tremors was a movie we always came back to, and that's because for whatever reason, whether it was my dad who liked Bert, whether it was my mom who liked Reba, whether it was me who liked Fred and Kevin Bacon, it was like it had something for everybody. And it was something we never argued about. Oh, we put on Tremors, let's watch Tremors. Yeah, heck yeah. Friday night movie night, family bonding night. Yeah, that was, and it was a movie we could always watch and nobody ever argued about or anything like that. It was a go-to in the VHS collection. Absolutely.
That's so nice. I always love hearing stories like yours where somebody says, my dad and I always used to watch that movie together, and we just had so much bonding over that movie. And it makes me feel good. I did a movie after City Slickers, and Maddock and Wilson wrote it again, that the same audience wouldn't necessarily like Tremors, but I've gotten more fan response almost for that film, for people relating to it and watching it as a family, and that is Heart and Souls, which starred Robert Downey Jr. and Charles Grodin and Alfred Woodard, Tom Sizemore, David Paymer, Kira Sedgwick. It was a wonderful ensemble cast, and it was about these four souls who weren't supposed to get killed and go to heaven, who all attached to baby Robert Downey Jr.'s body, and they're stuck with this kid through their, and don't understand why they're stuck to this kid, and that was something. You asked why I do certain films. That was tragically a film done after my middle daughter had her best friend riding over to our house on a bicycle and was struck and hit by a car and killed. And so I was looking for a project that would make death easier to deal with. And that was a film that we saw Nancy Roberts, Brent Maddox, Steve Wilson, and myself as a film that could be a lighter take on death that could help people. And it helped my family just dealing with it. And it helped, and I, that's why I did the film, because that was something that I needed for our family. And that led to a film that I've gotten so much mail about from families who've been dealing with death or whatever. And Robert Downey is, phenomenal actor, who I was so happy to get a chance to work with. It was, a wonderful time in his life. He certainly wasn't the biggest star in the world yet, as he became later, but he was just an amazing, amazing actor.
For those of you that didn't know, by the way, I don't think he mentioned the title of that film is called Hearts and Souls, just so we're completely, give Ron his due. So the Tremor Saga is kind of like throwing questions back at you here, Ron. They're doing like the cough and everything like here. So they're asking about, first off, returning to Tremors the series, elbow cough. Like, are we going to get back to doing something like that? Is that something the production company's like looking at doing more?
Well, Kevin tried to get a series off the ground a few years ago that didn't go forward, which is a strange thing because it had Kevin in it. Mm-hmm. It was a fun pilot, and I don't quite get why it wasn't done, but certainly there's the fan interest. It's whether you can come up with something that really is worth doing, and maybe, hopefully, someday. Well, who knows?
How about you guys? You got a question you want to throw out there while I continue to catch up with the chat? Goes crazy on me here.
I mean, kind of looking over some of your stuff you've done. You've been all over television from all the major studios. It seems like, and it seems like that's where you really have thrived. I'm getting to do Burn Notice and Monk.
Right. It's a wide variety of kinds of shows. I really do find that doing a feature film, I love doing features as well. And I miss the immersive experience of the entire post process that you do as a feature filmmaker. But I do like that it's like a sprint in television as opposed to a marathon. And so I'm on this sprint to do this show, which I have fun doing. I love the process of filmmaking, and I love variety, as I said. So I'm trying to do different kinds of things, so whether it's Scandal or Grey's Anatomy or.
Well, somebody asked about Robert Carlyle, so let's touch on Once Upon a Time. You did several episodes of Once Upon a Time, and it was an incredible ensemble cast there. And so kind of made definitely left some footprints on that show. And what a great journey that show was.
Bobby I love Bobby Carlyle. He is
underrated,
the best,
underrated,
just amazing actor, and can do anything. And just, oh my gosh, talk about craft. He was just amazing. Love that guy.
So let me ask throw me a funny story, something that you haven't shared, like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this for a minute, but this prompted my mind, this happened, you're gonna believe this, because I love that kind of stuff. Just give me one of those funny stories from whatever project, something that you pinch yourself sometimes going, well, that was a moment that happened. So
sometimes you do have to be quick on your feet.
Kind of like this moment, folks, where I've asked him a question he didn't prepare for. I just sort of throw a wrench out there to give us all a little pause and a little laugh, because these Hollywood sets are crazy. I remember reading it was a biography. Max Fleischer's son Richard was directing one of the John Wayne films, and was like, John's holding up the entire production because he refused to work until after he finished his morning Constitution. So the entire production team is just sitting around waiting. It's just like, okay, until John's done, we're not starting today, guys. It's like this stuff, just there's so many of these like crazy stories and elements that we don't understand are behind the scenes, and it's just I don't want to malign anyone, but I just think it makes like you were saying when Loki was talking about connecting. This is part of it. Sometimes we don't understand the human part of it too. We don't get enough of that. People don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah.
We were listening to one of the documentaries when they did the thing and the effect was supposed to go and it doesn't. It just shoots straight up in the air like a fountain. And there's John Carpenter going, well, that didn't go, like literally just like, wow. I can just imagine graboid craziness. And
that kind of thing happens more than not, unfortunately. Things don't work usually at first. And
the cows going off in every direction except where you need them to go. Yes.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, one of those times was when in Tremors, the sinking of the car, when Megan was in the car, her husband had just been eaten in one of our few night scenes. Jim was taken down and Megan runs into her station wagon and once again, we had a car built on an elevator, basically, that was dropping it through into a pool. We had the car sitting on top of a pond, basically, that we built with an elevator in it. And the pond was filled with a substance called vermiculite, which looks like dirt and floats. So it looked like it was just solid dirt. And the car would just sink, and Megan was going to bust through the windshield and be like a hood ornament going down at the end of the scene. We get there. It's the last day of filming on Tremors, the very last day. We're at lunch, and the special effects guy comes to me at lunch and says, Ron, I'm sorry to tell you, but the vermiculite is absorbing the water and it's like a solid surface now. The car won't sink. And it's like, oh my God, I've got a half day left of filming and no way to get this car into the ground. And so that's the kind of thing that you just get stuck with all the time when you're filming. And that's why filmmaking is a lot about problem solving. And how are you you have to do something, because this is going to be the scene in the movie, however you deal with it. And so what we did in that case was we built up a little berm around the car and just started lowering the camera down through the berm and let the dirt in the foreground sort of take the car, because we couldn't get the car to go down the way we planned to. Okay. And it was something, that we made do with, although it wasn't what we planned. We couldn't get Megan to go through the windshield and be the hood ornament that we wanted. We couldn't get so I felt like a total failure at the end of the day. Certainly, we didn't get the headlight effect that I really wanted going out. So we ended up making that a miniature shot. But we were, able to, at least get the scene into the movie, because we had to do what we had to do. And that's what you have to do. I mean, filmmaking is a lot of that. You'll find it in doing shorts or whatever you do. Doing a film, you're always running into physical problems or problems with actors not being able to do quite exactly what you had in your mind, but maybe something even better if you just open your mind to it, or you find some new solution that's going to work.
Create under pressure. And by goodness, the Tremors saga. Look at this. What an idea, guys. Look at this. Anthology with Kevin as like a past, present, future. And then with John Berthal as Earl's son. Oh,
I love that idea.
Gold.
John Berthal is so great. I worked with him. Oh my God. He is amazing, and I would love that.
My goodness, it sounds like a home run. It sounds like a home run. And for Ron, you should just know, because Chris Persia is saying that Hearts and Souls was his mom and he watched over and over again on VH, especially when her mother passed away. We watched it to help my mom move on with her grief, which is exactly what Ron said he was trying to shoot for, was just something that would help with that process that we all have to go through. So let's see here.
I was thinking how funny it would be for them to do another Tremors movie, and then it finally just goes full circle back to, well, now it's in the water.
Right. They actually are sharks.
Let's see. Okay. Well, this is interesting. Gap says one of your first endeavors, a 1976 short, courtesy A Good Egg Sample. One of your first endeavors. What can you tell us about that? What is a good egg sample, Ron? I don't think Gap's either Googling really deep or he just knows something I don't know, which probably is the latter.
When I was in college, I made a film for one of my film classes called The Executive, which spelled EGGSECTI, executive. And I used little eggs. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, blew the yolks and the whites out of the eggs. And so they were hollow, and I would stand them up on end and then move them around. And it was about this executive who worked in downtown and couldn't handle the real world. And I just always thought, wow, this could be such a nice film for kids using eggs as the characters. So it was early in my career. I was, I think I was making it while I was the location manager for a movie called Capricorn 1, which was a big star movie back in the 70s with Peter Hyams directing. And I was the location manager, but at night I would be working in my garage with these eggs, doing a movie about courtesy called The Good Egg Sample. And it was about kids in class and just about being a good kid or a good egg, really. And what's funny is that I think I made that in like 76, 77, and it's still selling today, and I still get royalties for it. And it's still
the egg money still rolling in. I love it.
The egg money is still rolling, and it's a film that has been really parodied with a very wild narration track by somebody on the internet.
I believe it was Riff Tracks.
Riff Tracks did a little parody of that.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think I have seen this.
Okay, we're gonna have to track this down, Loki. We're gonna have to track this.
It's a pretty if you're a kindergartner, it's really perfect.
Okay, so I got a feeling either they got a direct line or Nancy's eavesdropping on us, Ron, because they say you forgot to mention that it cost an extra $1 million, and Nancy and Jim had to fight for some cash. So.
True. It is true.
The producers are chiming in from the top going, listen, yeah, you may have had your problem with your sand, Ron. However, we had to go.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the Jim Jacks and Nancy Roberts, and they made that film possible when it wouldn't have been otherwise. And Gail Hurd was always very supportive. I remember being just very dejected out in Lone Pine about the special effects not working one day. And she said, Ron, get used to it. That's the way filmmaking is. And and she certainly had the experience with Terminator and The Abyss at the time, all of the films that she had done.
So Gap says he did see your egg. Your egg special was on ABC. So Gap is, yes. And then, of course, Soul Assassin and others are they're queuing up egg jokes. So it was egg quizzes. So that's going to be appropriate. So, wow.
All the egg puns are excruciating.
They are excruciating. This has been an amazing experience. Any last questions for Ron, guys? Before we I tell you what, he's been very gracious with his transparency and talking about everything. I tell you, Ron, you've touched a lot of lives, and we've tried to hopefully give you a little pat on the back and thank you for that. And maybe we could figure out a way to rope you coming back. You've mentioned some other projects going on and things like that. You're just in the preliminary stage, may not be able to say a whole lot about, but we'd love to have you back and talk about that and reminisce some more. To be honest, we barely scratched the surface. So
Thank you. Thanks so much.
well,
I'll have hopefully watched City Slickers by then.
oh, you will see City Slickers, my friend. We're going to figure out how to get you a copy of City Slickers like right now.
I can send him one. I can send him one right now.
Hail to all you folks in chat. You make this possible. You're the reason that we're here. You're the reason that we do all this stuff. So it is absolutely awesome. So yeah, and this Tremors saga, man, they're throwing up the ideas. They already got John. You guys are making. You guys make the call. You guys, you got Nancy somewhere. Make some calls. We're down with an anthology like that. We are totally down with that plan. So, but listen, folks. It's awesome. Thanks for spending time with us, getting to spend some time with Ron, Loki, and Ironcaster are amazing. Chris Persia holding down our chat for us. We appreciate it all so much. And folks, go out there tomorrow. Make it a little bit better than today, if you could. Just, a little bit better. Remember to be blessed. And, if nothing else, just take a time to just, take a breath, learn to chill a little bit. And if you have a hard time chilling, just remember, learn from the master. Here's Ross. All I do is chill. My life is a thrill, for real, Bob Ross. I be too calm for the drama. You don't want to cause a problem, I'll solve it, Bob Ross.